For the Built Forward Tough Studio, Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti, it's Boomer and Gio on the Fan, simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network, and wherever you are on the free Odyssey app. Good Monday morning. Rare couple of losses in a row for the New York Yankees against the Red Sox, but a weekend of wins for the New York Mets, and Jerry Recco is already crowing. He's already doing his, I thought the season was over stuff. He is all in. And I am rooting for him and his bet. I really am, and I'm rooting for the Mets to be relevant over the summer. I just caution everybody to just chill out for a little bit because you got to think about the big picture with them. We had an awesome finish to the U.S. Open we will get to as well, and we've got 85 degrees. I looked up. We're going to have a very busy week. We're going to be up in Cromwell, Connecticut on Wednesday where the high is going to be 94. I don't know if
not at 5 in the morning, no.
No, it's going to be hot. Yeah, but it's going to get up there quick, man. It's going to get up there. So good thing we're not playing in that Pro-Am this year. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
You know what? I'm cautiously optimistic this morning, G. That's exactly what every Met fan should be out there because winning 5 in a row and winning the way that they have won, and to me, J.D. Martinez has kind of saved the season here for the New York Mets, and thank God they signed him. Their bullpen, okay, not great yesterday, but at the end of the day, when you got a 5-game winning streak and you're trying to claw your way back to 500, reminds me at the beginning of the season. They started out with all those losses. They couldn't hit for crap. And then they go on the road. And remember I was saying, just get back to 500. Just get back to 500. And then that's when your season really does start. And here we are in the middle of June, and they're getting close to 500. And that's exactly where they have to get. Now they got a 6-game road trip. They got to go to Texas. They got to go to Chicago. I don't even want to get into, I'll take 4 and 2. I don't even want to get into that.
No.
Because, it's really a nice surprise that the Mets actually swept the series.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And, that's 2 series in a row now. And, quite frankly, it's a low bar to be set thinking, let's just get the 500 first and then let's see where the season takes us. So now all of a sudden we find ourselves in a completely different set of circumstances than we did 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, or do we? Because this is the thing that I think that where the conversation has to go is David Stearns came here to turn this organization over. And I think that Steve Cohen and David Stearns have looked at this season from the start like, okay, if we have a good year and it's a surprising good year, that's awesome. It'll be good for business. It'll be good for the fan base. But if we don't, then fine, because it'll make decisions easier for us in getting rid of players. So I think that in order for the Mets not to execute the plan that they probably have at the trade deadline, which is to trade away big-time names, rebuild the farm system, and do this full-blown David Stearns overhaul, they got to keep winning to the point where they're 7, 8, 9, 10 games over 500 and look like a real legitimate contender. Because this, from the get-go, the thought process from Steve Cohen and David Stearns on this season was, we'll throw out this group of guys. We're not going to improve the roster all that much. We're going to go after one free agent in Yamamoto. They didn't get him. And we're going to use this season as a transition season after what happened the year before with the whole blow-up with Scherzer and Verlander and everything else. So, if the Mets are 500 at the trade deadline and a game and a half out of a wild card spot, are they buying?
Yes.
See, I don't think that they are.
They are.
See, why do you think that,
You know why?
though?
Because I'm listening to what Steve Cohen is saying, during losing over in London, coming back. He believes in the core. I know that there are a lot of players that would be attractive at the trade deadline, including one J.D. Martinez, Luis Severino, Pete Alonso, all those guys, but if they continue to win and they got a chance to go for it, there's no way that Steve Cohen is not saying to David Stearns, we're going for it. I'm sorry. It's business. And, he feels the pressure. And by the way, Steve Cohen put the pressure on himself. He was the one at the beginning said, I want a championship within 5 years. And here we are without a championship. But maybe, and I say that very, very carefully, this team will overachieve. I mean, because at this point, they've underachieved, especially when it comes to hitting. And Edwin Diaz had been a disaster until, finally looks like a little bit like himself again. his last outing, but I would just, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right, but and that's fine, and I think Met fans should be, and I think that the fact that this winning streak has gotten them into a positive light again is great for all the diehard fans that watch the games, and they were blowing so many games, it just wasn't fun, and it's become fun in this stretch again. But there's two ways that you buy at the trade deadline. One is you give up prospects. Two is you take on salary. And I think in this rebuild, Steve Cohen isn't interested in any one of those things. Either one of them. Right now.
Well,
right now he isn't. Now he will be again at some point. But at this stage of the rebuild, he doesn't want to take any more salary on because he's got dead money all over the books. And they're not giving up any sort of legitimate prospect to get a real player in here. Then you want to tell me that you're going to, some A-ball guy for a reliever or something that's really not going to mean anything. Fine, but is that really buying at the trade deadline?
Well, there's a couple things that are going on here. Number one, if Pete Alonso wakes up and starts putting up the numbers that he can be capable of if he gets hot, and Francisco Lindor continues to hit, I think that now all of a sudden you got the two most important offensive players on with JD Martinez, starting to do something that we thought that they were going to do at the beginning of the year. That's one of the reasons why I think Jerry felt like they could get the 500 overall, and because they do have legitimate baseball players in their lineup. All I can tell you is that if I'm cautiously optimistic, then I'm assuming that David Stearns and Steve Cohen are cautiously optimistic, and I'm sure the players, because this goes back to that players-only meeting, I'm sure the players are sick and tired of hearing all the negativity around the team. And by the way, looking at the crowd yesterday, it made me realize, this is what winning baseball does. It brings people to the park. And they had a chance to sweep. And
Father's Day, great day to, go to a game.
But they also weren't crappy. I mean, they were in the midst of a sweep of a San Diego Padres team, as you talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Overpriced and overpaid.
Yeah, I know.
Holy God.
Yeah, that's another one for sure. The thing that's fascinating to me, and I don't know the answer. I think I have a feeling of what's going to happen. I don't have the answer, but the thing that's really interesting to me is the fans are looking at it like, get yourself in it, go buy at the deadline. You never know what could happen. It's baseball. You get in the playoffs. Next thing you know, you're in the World Series like the Philadelphia Phillies a couple years ago, who looked dead and fired Joe Girardi and then went on this run. The players are probably thinking that too. The players are saying, "Hey,
they have to think
right,
that.
Hold on, right? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So they're thinking that too. What is David Stearns and Steve Cohen thinking? Because that's the only thing that matters. Are they saying, listen, in their minds, are they saying Pete Alonso's gone, Jeff McNeil's gone, Starling Marte's gone, and if we can get some teams at the deadline, they're going to overpay for these guys because they're desperate. This season in 2024 doesn't mean anything to us because we have to rebuild and take this opportunity now to turn this roster over. That's the thing that's interesting. What are they going to do if they're on the fringe?
All right, so here's the thing. This is such a Mets thing.
Yeah.
Because, I know that we have sat here for about a month and a half and we have spoken about the trade deadline and what we believed at that time, what David Stearns would need to do in order to turn this thing over, get a new core in here, although there are a couple guys. This also coincides with the return of Francisco Alvarez, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other
huge,
part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a core player, whether we all believe he can really be the next best catcher in Major League Baseball in a couple of years if he can stay healthy. We love his energy, and we love the way that he plays the position, the way he looks in the batter's box, everything you want from your catcher, I think we have in Francisco Alvarez. But so to go back to the initial thought process, I'm just telling you, there is no way that if this team is close, that they are selling. The only way that this team is going
close
to sell.
In what way, though? Close.
Well, I mean,
to the second wild card.
Yeah, they're not going to sell at that point. At that point, they'll add, but they won't. They're not going to add unless somebody defers money or somebody takes some money back from the contract or something along those lines.
Well, what they did last year was, in order to get better prospects, they took on or were paid a significant amount of the salary for Verlander and Scherzer to get the better prospects.
They're not doing that this year. I'm talking about if they are. Who knows? What are you gonna do if they are in a wild card spot? I'm not even talking about 1.5 game out.
Probably stand pat. Then I would think they'd stand pat.
Yeah, if they continue to play like this, which we know they won't. I mean, they'll have some moments where they're going to be down as well, and they'll have some pitchers that will blow up or get hurt. But I just think, yes, they have a roster that is loaded with guys that if they are out of it, I think a lot of teams would love to have on their teams to fortify their teams at the trade deadline. But with the way that they're playing now and the fact that you could see how many fans showed up yesterday, and I know it was Father's Day, and I know it was a beautiful day, and I also know that they were getting ready to sweep there in the middle of a winning streak. That's what winning does. Winning brings people to the stadium. So, my gut tells me that if they're in it, they're going for it. They're not blowing it up.
I guess it's just a level of what is going for it. You know what I mean? And I don't think like going for it, whatever the top 3 guys on the market are at that point, I don't think that they're going after those guys.
But just look at the teams like the Marlins, the White Sox. Just look at these crappy teams that are out there. These are the teams that are going to be selling off players. And then you look at their rosters, you look at their players, and you say, is there anybody on those 2 teams in particular that would fit our roster?
All right, so we talk about John Tavares all the time and the Islander situation, about him staying and not getting anything for him at the trade deadline, and they were convinced he was going to want to re-sign there and everything else. This is just, and I don't know how David Stearns and Steve Cohen feel about Pete Alonso, but let's, for example, say that they don't want to sign him at 30 years old for whatever the market's going to be with a Scott Boras contract. They've made that decision. Like
we've
seen enough.
Offered him a contract and he turned it down.
Right. So perfect. So they're not going to pay him what Scott Boras thinks he was worth. They've made that decision. Okay, this is what we've offered you. You don't like it? Fine, done. We're not going to pay you any more than that. And they're hovering around 500, a couple games out of a wild card. You're telling me that they're going to let him walk for nothing when a team could give them?
I know that is going to be their biggest decision that they will have to make, and it's not going to be an easy decision whatsoever. And I think Garth Snow wanted to make the trade, from what I have gathered from that time and since that time. And the owners were playing. I think it was Malkin and Ledecky were playing in Brooklyn, and they felt like they needed a star in Brooklyn, and they made the wrong choice. And unfortunately, John Tavares decided to go play for his hometown team. I would just, if I'm looking at it right now, there's no rush, and the better the Mets play, the more they are unlikely to trade any of these players because they're going to go for it.
Yeah, and I was on the record saying that I don't think once they dip below 500 and they get back there, I'm still going to stick with that. I still don't think they get above 500 again this season, but this is great that there is some positivity and they're not totally dead right now at this point in the season. So that is a really good thing, and it makes things interesting.
I just think for Pete Alonso to have 15 home runs and 37 RBIs, I mean, he should be up around 20 and 55. That's where he should be, and he's maybe starting to heat up a little bit now, and maybe they're going to heat up. Last year it was like late August and September they were heating up and they were already out of it.
Yes,
in meaningless games.
Right.
But now these games are meaningful, and I would just say that they're trying to make a stand. I think whether you believe it or not, I think JD Martinez sometimes says things with tongue in cheek, but he said that meeting was one of the best players meetings he's ever sat through. Whatever was said in that meeting, obviously, has had an impact on this team.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back, they're 9 of 11 since that meeting. Now, there's been some other things that have gone on with this team that people have said, this was the reason why, and the Grimace first pitch and everything else. So let me just take you through my commute in. All right, so I'm listening to CMAC. I'm always listening to Chris McMonagle driving in, overnight guy. Does a very, very nice job.
We had to be ticked off this morning.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he was keeping it together. He's rational. He knows it's not going to be perfect, but he was a little bit annoyed at the 2 losses, the back-to-back losses.
How about the 9 stolen bases?
Yeah, sloppy. He was a little bit upset. So then he goes to break. So There's this podcast that I was listening to that I'm really into. It's Luke Combs with Theo Vaughn. Very funny, very good podcast. So I'm like, I'm going to put that podcast on. So I get lost in the podcast, forget to go back to CMAC, and I miss the beginning of the warm-up show. So I'm like, oh, crap. I gotta get back to the warm-up show.
You got to have a little warm-up show in your life.
Right, so I got to get back to the warm-up show. So I click back from the Theo Vaughn podcast to WFAN, and the first thing I hear is... That's what I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
How many guys are gay? Does it matter?
Well, so now, one more time, Eddie. Just
the gay Mets.
The gay Mets are 9-3. So
okay.
I am confused now, right?
I'm confused right now. And
So I'm like, I gotta go. So I listen on the radio still. So like, I gotta go back on the Odyssey app to find out why the Mets are gay.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And why they've been 9-3 since turning gay. So as Alice explained it, because it's Pride Month, the Mets have changed their logo to the multicolored logo.
There was
the
a
Met
light
logo.
blue logo last night, wasn't it?
Well, for Father's Day, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about on their X account. On their X account.
On their X account, okay.
So since they have changed that logo, they have gone 9-3.
So the gay Mets. So okay.
So that's where that comes from.
So they're the meeting,
Right?
the grimace, and now the gay Mets. So there's three things that are all tied to winning.
Yeah, and
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, show some pride during Pride Month.
this is not something I came up with. I kept seeing this on my Twitter like over the last few days. The gay Mets are 6-3.
Not Twitter, it's X.
The gay Mets are 7-3. I was like, this is a thing. So then I searched that on X, and tons of stuff comes up. It's crazy.
Yeah. So when June is over, they're no longer the gay Mets?
Correct.
Well, I guess whenever they change their Twitter at their X
Well,
avatar.
that would be July 1st.
Okay, so then it's just they got to ride this gay wave as long as possible because it's working out for
And because the Asian Pacific Islander Mets were terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
Did they change their logo?
No.
Oh, okay.
Is July, other than Independence Day, is July any sort of month?
I'm sure it is.
Of course it
It's
is.
got to
Come
be
on.
July's got to be a month for something or somebody, right?
Yeah. What Heritage Month is July? Let's see. It's Disability Pride Month in July.
Disability Pride, okay.
Right. So we can have the handicap Mets see how they do. Because the gay Mets have done very well. So, yeah. So those are the things. Grimace, the team meeting, and the gay Mets.
Having some pride in yourself. Okay.
Jerry wanted no part of that discussion. He started going into J.D. Martinez and OPS and Luis Torrens. And
he almost said it himself.
yeah,
but
I heard. He
caught
was like,
himself.
you can do whatever you want. Grimace or the good, the whatever you want.
He didn't know how to handle it, huh?
The grimace or the
Whatever you want to call it.
Do you have that? Do you have Jerry saying that?
I can
You got to find that. You got to find that. I got to hear that.
You slammed the brakes on that as fast as he could so that audio didn't last forever.
When you were driving and you heard that, I mean, like, you were like, what did he just say?
He texted me.
Yeah, I texted him immediately. I said,
did.
please get me the gay Mets 9-3. All right. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.